On the night of the homicide, Mr. Fernandez returns to his house at 5:45. He is there the entire night. There is no evidence that he left his home. Think about all of the different detectives that told you that they collected detailed evidence from the crime scene. People touched the little, the caps that are on the tire, we collected those. Not one person can connect you, Mr. Fernandez, to any piece of evidence that was left at the homicide scene, or most importantly, the blue truck. They used special vacuums, if you recall me asking the detective, with special filters so they could collect hair. They did fingerprint dusting. They did DNA testing of the steering wheel, the seats, the headrests. Not one piece of evidence connects Mr. Fernandez to ever being inside of that Ford F-150. And then I went one step further. I'm like, well, it's been a little while. Was there evidence that the vehicle was cleaned out, wiped, cleaned, vacuumed? No. It was side of a pigsty. No evidence that it was cleaned out. And yet they couldn't find one piece of evidence connecting Mr. Fernandez. And remember, when Mr. Fernandez goes in for his interview, it's voluntary. And they say, will you give us a DNA swab? And he says, no problem. And he gives his DNA. And according to the government, what they told you is he never thought he would ever get caught. So of course he would give a DNA swab. Well, if he was so willing to do that, knowing that he was inside of the blue truck, that doesn't make sense. And that's in conflict with what the government wants you to believe. Not a single eyewitness, not a single Crime Stopper, no DNA, no fingerprints, and he tells law enforcement he's home and he gives details about date night. Detective Johns, went on to say that they don't know where the F-150 went post-homicide, that an unknown driver pulled out of Pablo Hamlet, an unknown driver passes Ocean K, and they do not know where the truck went post the homicide. It's never to be seen again. If there's an unknown driver, okay, and unknown locations, 36-minute gaps, and then a vehicle that just disappears, if they don't know who the players in this case are, then they don't know what happened. And I mean the government doesn't know what happened. And when they say there's only one person that could connect Mr. Fernandez to these little details, it's impossible to say that when you don't know who the other person in the truck was. The other person in the truck could be connected to Shanna Gardner. The other person in the truck could be connected to Shanna Gardner's family. The other person in the truck could be connected directly to Jared Bridegan. And we would never know because we don't have their bank records. We don't have their DNA swab. We don't have their phone records. It's an unknown player that's not Mr. Fernandez. So when you go back there and you say, well, geez, out of all the gin joints in all the world, it's Mario Fernandez's, it's Henry Tenon is Mario Fernandez's tenant. So all this makes sense and we should just go along and make sure that we don't unstring the yarn or whatever it is that Ms. Stifler showed you at the end of the tapestry. The bottom line is, for the government to tell you that there's only one connection, they have to know who's involved, and they don't. Keep going. So the 10mm firearm. How many times have you heard the government tell you it's an unaccounted for 10mm firearm? Let me be very clear about this. The first thing they would have to do for this to have any evidentiary value is they have to tell you that John Biggerstaff's 10mm firearm is connected to the homicide of Jared Bridegan. They have not done that. There are tens of thousands of 10mm firearms in Glocks that have been produced since 1991, and they don't know which of any one of those it is that was involved in this homicide. So let's just start with that premise. Then the second thing the government would have to do is then connect Jared Mr. Fernandez to John Biggerstaff's firearm. So what did we show you? We showed you that John Biggerstaff, in fact, did purchase a 10 millimeter firearm in 2016. Then he became, he was arrested. So this is the purchase of the Glock. This is the Glock that was put on the firearms affidavit, which of course is a big deal that it matches, because it would be a big deal if the government could show that John Biggerstaff bought a 10 millimeter, then filled out a firearms affidavit, and that firearm wasn't on it. That would be good evidence to suggest that he kept one of his guns. But that's not what the facts are. The facts are is that he bought one, he filled out a firearms affidavit, and the exact one that he bought was put on it. And the magistrate said you can no longer have guns, and he got rid of them. And I think Ms. Stifler said during her close, well, I mean, just because a judge tells you to do it doesn't mean that you have to do it. Sure it does. He got rid of all of them, with Juan Biggerstaff, his son present, and someone from federal probation. And when you don't follow the rules, that's exactly what happens. You go to jail. And when he tested positive for drugs, because the government does a little thing called following up, they make sure you don't have your firearms when you're on federal pretrial release. You think they just take your word for it? No, they send someone to your home. They make you fill out an affidavit. They check to make sure you don't have them. They tell you you're not supposed to do drugs. When he tested positive for drugs, what did they do? They arrested him, and he went straight to jail. So this idea that they just don't follow up, or it's not a big deal, it's in conflict to their own evidence. So then he fills out the firearms affidavit, that firearm is put on there, and it's not seen again for all of these years. But they made such a big deal about it. How rare it was. How this could be the only 10 millimeter that could be involved. They went to one pawn shop. Detective John sent his investigators to one pawn shop in all of Jacksonville, and they found 6 10 millimeters that were sold in the recent time, 3 of which were Glock 40 Gen 4s, the exact make and model of John Biggerstaff's. Like, he laughed when he's like, you know anyone that owns a 10 millimeter? He hasn't been allowed to be around guns or people that are in possession of guns since 2016. He probably doesn't know someone who has one. We don't have to guess that people own them. 6 of them were purchased in and around the time of the homicide in Jax Beach, 3 of which match the exact description. And when I asked Detective Johns, well, once you learned that, what did you do? Nothing. You didn't follow up? No. You didn't go interview anyone? No. Nothing. 0. When they learned that Henry Tennant had gone to a particular pawn shop and actually pawned something, did you go there and investigate to see if he got a 10 millimeter? No. Did you go to any other pawn shops anywhere across town ever? No. But they want, what's more reasonable? That maybe someone who actually got a firearm during that period of time may have been involved, or that Mario Fernandez, who not one witness, and we'll talk about John Biggerstaff, Juan Biggerstaff, and Fred Barton, not one of them said anything about Mario Fernandez, other than John Biggerstaff said, I did not give him a firearm. On March 1st, Mr. Fernandez came in and he gave a voluntary interview. You know, because of his bank accounts, that on March 1st, he had in excess of $200,000 available to him. Hiring a lawyer is not something that he could not have done. He didn't show up with counsel. He didn't invoke his right to remain silent. He sat down voluntarily. He gave an interview. And then I asked on cross-examination to figure out, well, let's see if the guy was telling the truth. He talked a lot. You heard the interview. Detective, he told you that Jared Bridegan got into a big confrontation with Bishop Curry about the purple hair. Did you ever go and interview Bishop Curry to see if that was true? We did. And in fact, there was a big confrontation, wasn't there? Well, I don't know if it was a confrontation, wouldn't answer my question, but yes, they got into it. And Bishop Curry was not happy about their interaction. That's what Detective Johns told you. But the point that I'm making is he went, he interviewed him, and it did, in fact, happen. It was true. He wasn't lying. AB phone call, true. The children's therapist that he talked about, Mercedes McGowan, this is a guy who's some absentee stepdad. He knows who the children's therapist is. He knows all the medications they're on. Did you find out if that was true? That was the children's therapist? We did. He admitted that it was a high conflict co-parenting situation. He didn't deny that. If he's thinking I'm the suspect in this murder or I'm involved in this, maybe I should make it seem like things weren't that bad. No, he said it was a high conflict. That's exactly what the evidence showed. As Ms. Stifler said, most people said he admitted there was some high conflict, and that's exactly what he told the police. He didn't undersell it or try to underreport. He told it exactly like it was. And he was upset that Miss Gardner and the children were not invited to Jared Bridegan's funeral after inviting Kirsten Bridegan into their home. And all of that was true. They were not invited, and they did invite Kirsten Bridegan into their home. The government, of course, talks about the motive. We talked about the family law case as to why there's no motive, and they just keep focusing on this one sentence. But I ask you to please remember that what the evidence was is that they asked him questions about Jared Bridegan. So they keep saying, well, he just kept bad talking Jared Bridegan. They were only asking questions about Jared Bridegan, and that he would give the answers. And he was saying that the children needed to be in therapy, and therapy was good for the children. And if Jared Bridegan attempted to take the children out of therapy, which they believed Mercedes McGowan was helpful, that the family law lawyers suggested that then they would file for a social investigation, and then they would move to modify the time sharing to 60-40 or something that worked better for the children. That's what the interview that's in evidence says. Don't take my word for it. That's why I took the transcript out and I read it line by line with Detective Johns. It's not just that we want decision making. And most importantly, the children were never taken out of therapy, and they never moved ever to modify the time sharing agreement. So the predicate of what this was based on never happened, and then they never took this action. So to suggest that now they would just kill Jared Bridegan because that's an easier solution, there is no evidence they had any motive to take one single day away from Jared Bridegan unless he did something that would negatively impact the children, which he decided not to do.
Mr. Dreicer, can I pause you for a break?
Yes.
Okay. Members of the jury will take 15 minutes, okay?